Hello there guys, it's Joey. So I said I would pop up a video about the Morrigan crystal grid, crystal wheel that I was playing with regards to the black kyanite, which I bought specifically for gridding because they look quite crow-like, like a crow wing, and I fancy playing around a little bit with the energies right now and the energies of honouring the Morrigan. And this sort of works as a sort of crow energy, crystal grid, crystal wheel, as well as one for honouring the goddess Morrigan. It works on both levels. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the setup, and then we will grab the crystal bibbles and talk about the meanings a little bit as well, and why I have chosen some relatively unusual crystals for this particular wheel, at least in terms of what is generally given as crystals for the Morrigan and people's general perceptions. So these crystals may seem a bit odd to some. They make perfect sense to me, but then they would, wouldn't they? So at the very centre I decided to utilise my labradorite sphere, and it's actually sat on a little stand so it doesn't move, and this really it gives it a slightly more unusual feel to it. It's not the first crystal grid by any means to utilise a sphere at the centre, but it changes it a little bit, it shifts the energy a little bit, it feels a bit more cyclic in its nature. I like it. So I when I was sat here thinking about it, this is what kept coming up and coming up and coming up, and it's not something I'd ever thought about doing, is having something at the centre which wasn't pointed. And I guess the general sort of theories behind having a point in the centre is that it sort of pierces through, its energy is focused into one point and becomes more of the central focus by having that point. So what happens when you have sort of a sphere is it becomes a little bit more encompassing, a little more of a cycle. It sort of generates differently, or it feels like it generates differently anyway. This is just my feelings and opinions on the matter, and it's lovely actually. It's If I consider the goddess Morrigan in terms of her cycles and her nature, in that she's life, death and rebirth, and she's all of these things, and she's constantly moving and shifting, and she's never one or the other, she's constantly shifting through others, which is the same with crow energy, as they're said to be able to see future, past and present simultaneously and see time in a more circular fashion. Then having a lovely sphere at the centre makes sense to me in terms of those energies. And it is labradorite, of course, and labradorite is the crystal which I most associate with the goddess Morrigan, and indeed crow energy, given that mystical shapeshifter energy that we've just talked about, things in flux, constantly changing, mysticism. And then of course you have the 4 black kyanite and 4 of the smaller labradorite, the shinier. They're much more vibrant in their colour flashes, the little ones. And I kind of liked that little sort of, rather than having a large crystal, having 2 small ones here, sort of the length of the labradorite. I liked the way that sat pattern wise. I might be odd, I don't care, I really like it. It's basically it's quite star-like, but it also sort of speaks a little bit of sort of a dragonfly shape or a butterfly type shape of metamorphosis and change. And then around here, we have aquamarine, stone of courage, and we have rainbow moonstone in the 4 points here and black moonstone in the 4 points there. Quite frequently moonstone is not associated with the Morrigan, and people have difficulty sort of aligning in their heads a lunar goddess energy with the Morrigan, but she is all things, as far as I'm concerned, primal, and to have her solar fire energy means she also has her softer lunar energy. The Rainbow Moonstone makes perfect sense to me because it is the almost natural counterpart to Labradorite. It has the shimmer through, it has similar but different energy. I really, really liked it in terms of that. And then the black Midnight Moonstone. It works really well. I really, really like it. So let's work from the outside in, why not? So the Midnight Moonstone is the stone of hope, wishing, new beginnings, traveller's stone, soothing, balancing the male and female, psychic abilities. So I really, really like the idea of balancing the male and the female within the Black Midnight Stone. It also, for me, speaks a little bit to the energies of the new moon, which is one of the times I consider to be the Morrigan's time, perhaps more than any other. I really like that. Let's just look at Rainbow Moonstone. Cosmic light, spiritual healing, inter and multi-dimensional journeys are part of an ever ongoing cycle, linking you to your overall soul plan as well as life plan, helping you see the unseen, read symbols and synchronicities, and opening you up to spiritual gifts. Tied to the cycles and phases of the moon, etc. So having the two energies of the moon on the outside is very much about intuition, and I really wanted this grid now before we venture into the healing energies of where we're going with the channel, with the magic work that I intend to be starting very, very soon. And it's basically reconnecting to spirituality. It's reconnecting to a sense of self, a sense of purpose, one's psychic gifts. It's reconnecting to the cycles of who you are and who your goddess is. In my case, obviously. This sort of thing can obviously be tweaked to any deity. And if you really wanted to work with a solar deity, you could have perhaps solar crystals around the outside, and that would work just as well. You know, you can have your sunstone, your citrine, things of that nature, even fire ones like carnelian. But I really liked that slightly more mystical, gentler, but very enlightening energy, and it counterbalances the Labradorite really, really well. The Labradorite is also about the mysteries, the unknown, the magic, and for a lot of us I think the moon really represents something which we really feel akin to when we're looking up at the night sky and we're living by the cycles, and it gets us back to feeling witchy within ourselves. So it's a little bit like connecting to the cycles of Morrigan. It may be a Morrigan Priestess crystal grid. More than, not more than, as well as. So it's basically a crystal grid of the Morrigan and of her priestess. Or priest. Depending on your gender. Okay, and then we shall look for aquamarine. I'm doing this all one-handed, so you have to bear with me. I know it's the Stone of Courage, which is why I picked it. Obviously, the Morrigan reveres and is a goddess of courage, you know. She encourages her followers, or picks her followers dependent on their ability to be strong, to be courageous. Protection from darkness and evil as well. Helps remove extraneous thought, a sort of filtering out confusion, clears blocked communication, clearing blocked self-expression. It's basically clearing out the stuff that's hindering a spiritual connection. Or another way of looking at this is a crystal grid to help you as a priest or priestess, particularly of the Morrigan in this circumstance, but it's a setup anybody could use and tweak, for letting go of what has happened in the previous year. You know, you've come through all these trials and tribulations, especially if you've had a difficult year, and you need to reconnect, and you need to reconnect to you, reconnect to your purpose, reconnect to your spiritual path. Where am I going? Where am I going with this? And all those questions, and this grid is to help with those. And I like it a lot. So labradorite, which is the small pieces, and the centers, we've talked about at length before, and it's basically a stone of mysticism and magic. It's the shaman stone. It's the witch stone, as far as I'm concerned. It's the stone that most connects me to my goddess. It flashes illumination, flashes of insight, the magical, the mystical, getting you back to feeling witchy or feeling connected, that sort of thing. And then obviously you have your black kyanite. They're physical representations of crowing here, but they're also really great for protective energies and grounding energies, and they sort of ground you into yourself. So if you're feeling a little bit lost, a little bit adrift, it can help with that. It helps direct the energy of the overall grid as well. And it just helps you if you're feeling wobbly, just if that makes sense. So I just thought I would share it. I know at least a couple of people right now are having, and have said, you know, I'm having a little bit of a wobble right now with connecting to my spirituality, connecting to my path, who I want to be in the future. This is a big time of people wanting to make changes and things, and that's at the forefront of our minds, and that's okay. You know, a lot of people will be quite down on people doing that because it's the new year, so everyone's doing the new year. But you know, if you need to do those things, then you embrace those things, you embrace the energy of the year, and you go for it. So there you go. That is a Morrigan Priestess crystal grid. Many blessings.